I wanted to start by commenting on today's first reading from the first book of Samuel. And we have the very popular story, a very famous story that everybody is familiar with, David fighting against Goliath. And if you recall, yesterday I had mentioned that very often how God sees things and how we see things is very different. And we see that theme present in today's first reading also. So David offers to fight against Goliath. And notice Saul says to him, you're just a boy, and Goliath, he's been a warrior for a long time. You can't fight against him. And and the other thing is, imagine Goliath, he's this huge man and he's covered in armor also. So here's this little David, young David, who's going to go against him. But of course he's victorious. And the reason he's victorious is because he doesn't so much trust in his own strength. I mean, yes, he's had experience fighting against wild bears and lions to protect the sheep. So he knows he can fight against, wild beasts and animals, including probably human beings, right? So he has some confidence in himself, but he trusts in the power of God. So he's not going on his own behalf. He's going on behalf of God, of the God of the Israelites. And he makes that very clear to Goliath. So he says to him, this very day, the Lord will deliver you into my hands, right? And he says earlier, where is it? You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. So David is acting on behalf of God. He's trusting in the power of God to enable him to be successful. And of course, we know that he is successful. So he kills Goliath. He uses his sling and knocks him down and cuts off his head using the sword of Goliath. And we can use this as a kind of analogy to Our Lady. Not so much to Christ, because Christ as God, he's all powerful, but Our Lady is a humble handmaid of the Lord. And in many ways, she undertook this battle against the greatest of the angelic beings, Satan. So the evil spirits, I had mentioned this before, that they probably tempted her in the same way that they tempted Christ. But she was faithful to God. She remained obedient to God. And because of that, she doesn't kill the devil, completely destroy him, but she crushes the head of the serpent. So, very often we have those images of Our Lady with her foot standing on the head of a serpent. So she crushes the head of the serpent. Why? Not because she's powerful, not because she's great. She's just a lowly handmaid of the Lord. But like David, she trusts in God and is totally committed to serving God, to being obedient to God. And this is why it's so important and beneficial for us to be close to Our Lady, because when we are close to her, we tend to want to imitate her. And when we are close to her, we have her added protection, and she helps us to imitate her, to become like her, so that we can love Christ more, so that we can avoid offending our Lord further. And, today is the feast of Saint Anthony of Egypt, and he's an extremely great saint. And, he started monasticism in the Western tradition. And what a lot of people don't know is like his life. There's a book written about his life. I can't remember which pope wrote it. But anyways, it was influential in bringing about the conversion of St. Augustine, as well as many, many others. But St. Anthony fought the demons. And in fact, he lived as a hermit for a long time. And, you think, well, what do hermits do? Like, what are they going to think about? So they battle within themselves to overcome their pride, their selfishness, their laziness, whatever it may be. But the demons attack them, sometimes with impure images, whatever. So he was so victorious in overcoming all these temptations that the demons actually physically came to attack him, but he would defend himself by praying, by resorting to the power of God that comes to us through our union with God. And this is a very important lesson for all of us, because whenever we face battles in life or difficulties in life, we tend to get angry. We tend to rely upon ourselves, our own abilities, instead of invoking God, instead of calling upon God. This is what we need to do. We need to invoke God. We need to trust in the power of God. We need to trust that God will help us. So yes, we need to do what we can, but first and foremost, we need to pray. I also wanted to make just a very brief comment on today's gospel reading. Once again, it's the theme of, our Lord healing on the Sabbath. So he heals this man with the withered hand. But notice what he says to the Pharisees, and this is very, very significant. Something that we should reflect on. Then he said to the Pharisees, this is Christ speaking now, "Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill?" But they were silent. So he's doing good on the Sabbath. That's obvious. We all get that. But notice he's putting to them an alternative. It's one or the other. Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill? In other words, he is referring to sins of omission. If you have the ability to help someone on the Sabbath and you do not, you are partially responsible for the harm. You are causing harm. If somebody falls into a well and you don't pull him out because it's the Sabbath, you're responsible for their death. So is it lawful to save life or to kill? And so often we don't think of the sins of omission that we ourselves might be responsible for. So we have the ability to save people from hell. Imagine that. By praying for them, by evangelizing them. But so often we fail to do so. So are we guilty of this? Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill? Let us ponder these words and let us be close to Our Lady, and may she protect us from all the evil influences in our lives.